Hey boys and girls, welcome to Levy School. All right, well, welcome back to Levy School, where we answer all the most common questions, address all the most common concerns, and hopefully clear up some of the most common misconceptions regarding school levies in general, but more importantly, the particular school levy for Anthony Wayne schools that'll be on the November 5th ballot. The question for Levy School today is, what about making cuts? So when you're in a situation where your expenses have outpaced your revenue, as is the case with Anthony Wayne's current operating deficit, there are only two ways to solve that problem. You can either raise revenue, which is what a tax levy is aiming at doing or aims at doing, or you can decrease your expenses. And typically it requires a combination of those efforts. If we're going to come to taxpayers and ask them to chip in some more to raise revenue, I think taxpayers have a right to expect the school district to do some cost cutting. And again, we want to tip our cap to the current administration and newly minted school board for doing just that. Since the last two times this levy has been on the ballot, the school administration and school board have approved $2 million of cuts to the school's general fund. So they have left several administrative positions unfilled. They removed a school psychologist position. They've eliminated several custodial positions and a media aid position. So the sum total, again, most of the expenses are connected to people. So where you make significant cuts as a school system is always going to be in people. And the school district has listened to taxpayers and has gone and has trimmed its budget by $2 million. Yes, ma'am. Comment.
Yeah, so if they cut them in the first place, doesn't that mean they didn't need them at all?
Yeah, so I've heard that from people, right? Like maybe we were spending too much in certain positions, and that's a reasonable thought. The truth of the matter is, time will tell, right? There's a certain amount of labor that needs to be done by the school system, just like in any company or organization. There's a certain amount of labor, and that labor is spread out and placed on the shoulders of a certain number of people. When you decrease the number of people, the workload doesn't change. It just now is being carried by fewer people. It's possible that there will be some places where the district will realize, yeah, well, we were running a little heavy there. We could afford to get rid of some people in this department. We've managed to pick up that work slack pretty easily, and we're running more efficiently. And if that happens, great. It is also possible, however, that the school district will realize, no, there are things that we're dropping, things that need to get done well are not getting done nearly as well as they used to get done. There's also the issue of just intangible things, like any organization wants to be kind of constantly improving the services that it's offering, but you need people who have enough time and space to be able to think that through and focus on that. So just because the district cut personnel doesn't mean they didn't need the personnel. It's distinctly possible they didn't need everyone, but it's also distinctly possible they needed everyone. And over the course of time, things are going to start to fall through the cracks. Yes, ma'am. Another question, comment?
All right. What about when the district threatened to take away busing, but then they didn't?
Yeah, I hear this a lot. I want to say a couple things here. First, can we just dispense with the language of threatening, please? It kind of frames this whole thing in a kind of us against them. And that's just not what's going on. Nobody in the school district is sitting in some office, pressing their fingers together and thinking, I know what we'll do. We'll threaten to take away their busing if they don't give us more money.
Okay, Jake and the Neverland Pirates.
I don't know why I slipped into a pirate voice there, but you get the idea. Nobody's threatening anything. Again, when expenses outpace revenue, there's only two ways to solve that problem. You have to increase your revenue, which is what the tax levy is for, and or you have to cut expenses. That's not a threat. The school district is not against anyone in the community. They simply have an obligation to align their budget, and if we don't generate more revenue, then they're required to make cuts. So it's not a threat, it's just a financial reality. Now, with regard to the busing, there's no perfect way to know what to cut when you have to make cuts. And if you've ever been in a situation like that in your own businesses or organizations, you know that. The same holds true with the school system. What the school is going to always try and do is, if it has to make cuts, is make cuts in ways that don't directly impact the core mission of a school, which is to educate kids in the classroom. That is why busing is one of the first things to get cut. School districts are not legally required to offer busing to any high school kids ever, no matter where you live. And they're also not legally required to offer busing to any students in the district who live within 2 miles of the buildings they attend. So when districts need to make cuts, busing is typically one of the first services that they look to cut, because the savings on bus fuel, especially in a district like Anthony Wayne, that is 77 square miles. They have 44 bus routes a day. I think they cover something like 3,200 miles a day in bus routes. That's a lot of diesel fuel. So busing is usually one of the first places districts will go, and that's what Anthony Wayne did. They planned to cut bus services as part of their financial recovery plan. But here's what happened, and it was unexpected. They had about 10 positions in the district, both administrative and teachers, where they had unexpected openings. Some of those positions they left unfilled. Some of those positions they were able to hire replacements that were far less expensive. So the amount of money they projected to save by cutting busing, they managed to save in personnel changes. And so what they decided to do, because they recognized that cutting transportation is an enormous inconvenience to families in the district, because they saved the money they needed to save over here, they no longer had to save it over here. And so they decided, we are going to leave busing intact for at least 1 more year as we wait to see how the levy plays out, because they were able to save those expenses elsewhere. So that's what happens with the busing. Yes, ma'am?
Touche, O'Shea. What about the coaching positions? That was the other one. There were coaching positions they threatened to remove and didn't.
Yeah, again, I hear that a lot, and I understand it, because what it looks like, or the perception is, again, the school district is threatening, and then they're kind of reneging on their threats. That's not what's happening. Again, there's no perfect way to make cuts, but the school district is always going to try and make cuts in places that don't negatively impact its core mission of educating students in the classroom. And I know that this will come as a shock to a lot of people, because we are so sports obsessed in our culture, in our community, but public school systems are not actually in the athletics business. Believe it or not, there are no state standards for rushing yards, or whether you shot under par, or field goal percentage, or the amount of time it took you to pin somebody. There are state standards in math and history and science and English language. Okay, so the core mission of a public school district is to educate students in a classroom. So because athletics are great, kids learn a lot from athletics, it's wonderful, it's great for the community, it's not the school's core business. So when it needs to make cuts, coaching positions are a natural place for it to go. And that, again, kind of like the busing, that was part of Anthony Wayne's phase 1 cut plan, was to cut a bunch of supplemental coaching positions. But much like the busing, something unexpected happened. The Anthony Wayne Booster Club, which is not run by the school, it is a separate organization that partners and supports the school system. The Anthony Wayne Booster Club came to the administration and said, we would like to make a contribution to the school district to pay for those supplemental positions so that those coaches don't lose their job. And that was voted on at a school board meeting, and those positions were reinstated. So again, this was not one of those things where the district was threatening something and then someone, raised a stink about it, and so the district backed off. They were simply making cuts where, in their estimation, it's the best place to make them, but they ended up not having to do that. Which brings us to the final phase of this, which is cuts that will need to be made if this levy does not pass. Again, there's only 2 ways to solve this problem. You can either generate revenue, which is what the levy is all about, or you have to continue making cuts in order to bring your budget into alignment. That is not a threat. That is just a simple financial reality. I do not know how the district will continue to make cuts. It has laid some things out in its financial recovery plan, which you can find on the district website in sort of broad terms, but you can expect, I think, cuts in bus transportation in the following year if this levy does not pass. I think you'll see cuts to those supplemental coaching positions. I think that you could reasonably see further cuts in administration, security, purchased services and supply accounts, classroom supplies, cleaning supplies. Anywhere the school district can make cuts where it's not going to negatively impact the core mission of kids learning in the classroom, that's where they'll go. But it's going to be very, very difficult for a district to make enough cuts to close the gap without that negative impact in the classroom happening. Again, most of our expenses are tied to people. To make significant cuts that really make a difference in this operating deficit, you're going to have to cut people. And eventually, you're talking about people who are directly engaging with students in the core mission of education. Now, obviously, we here at Levy School hope it does not come to that. I can tell you the school district does not want to have to cut anything. They also do not want to have to come to you and ask for more money. But here we are. That is the situation that we're in. I think the school board's hope is that together, the community will be willing to generate some more revenue. The district will do its due diligence and make cuts everywhere that it can. And together, those two measures will close this gap and solve this problem over the course of the next 5 years. I hope that all makes sense to you. But a reminder, all of this is about a sense of gratitude and responsibility. We know that tax hikes are hard. It's a burden on everybody. The school district doesn't want to put that on you. You don't want to have to shoulder it. I don't want to have to shoulder it. But public education is one of our most sacred shared commitments, both noble, essential to our shared prosperity. I hope you're grateful for the sacrifices people made for you, and you feel a sense of responsibility to do for others what others did for you. If you feel that way, then join us on November 5th and vote yes for the Anthony Wayne School levy. Thanks for attending Levy School. We'll see you back here real soon for another episode where we'll kind of handle a smattering of sort of financial misconceptions.